And then we can go more and more technical here. So I want to discuss vertex count. So you don't only have the triangle count. You can see here this rock, for example, is 2,986 triangles. And but you also the vertex count. So this rock is 8,630 vertices. And just like the triangles, the vertices, they don't have that much of an impact on performance. There is still a very minimal impact, but it's not that big. So rendering wise, having a high vertex count isn't that big of a deal, but it does add a lot more memory. So I made two test cases here in Max that will show you that exactly what's happening here. I made a couple of teapots. Let's see which one it was. Yeah, I made this teapot, which is 16,384 triangles. And I made the exact same teapot, which is also 16,384 triangles, except this one is smooth. But the whole mesh is smoothed, all the edges are smoothed, and this one only has hard edges. So all the edges on this one are hard, but it's otherwise exact same polygon. Now, if I export both of these and compare them in Unreal, you're gonna see something special. Okay, so here we have our two teapots. There's 16,256 triangles here. Not sure why it decided to slightly change it. But here is one. This is the hard surface one, the hard edge one. And then the other one is all smooth. And now you can see there's a very big difference if you do that in the vertex count. So the poly count is exactly the same for both. But the smoothed one only has 9,198 vertices, whereas the hard edge one has 29,500 vertices. So the vertex count of this went way up because of the lack of smoothing. If you smooth an object, if you only have smooth edges, you actually save a lot on vertices. And you save a tiny bit of performance. So it's slightly better to smooth things than to have hard edges. And that has a slight impact on rendering performance, very slight. But has particularly an impact on the size of the mesh. So you can see here the resource size. This is 442 kilobytes for this mesh, but it's 997 kilobytes for this one. Well, the poly count is the same, and that's purely because of the extra vertices. All the extra vertices adds about 300, 400, actually 500 kilobytes of overhead. So the vertices can bring up your memory quite a lot, especially particularly when you're dealing with high poly meshes like these. If it's 16,000, 20,000, 30,000 triangles per mesh, then it could start adding several hundreds of kilobytes per mesh you make. If you have 100 of those, well, it's 100 times, say, 500 kilobytes. It does add up a bit. So 100 times 500 kilobytes, I can't do easy math. Well, it's actually very easy. 100 times... that's probably, well, it's 50 megabytes extra data then. Again, it's in the year 2013, not the biggest thing ever, but still it's 50 megabytes extra. And also one thing here is that if a mesh doesn't need collision at all, so for example, let's say that this is a teapot that's only this, that you can only see in the background. For example, this is a very large distant mountain, and a distant mountain is 30,000 triangles or something, but you're never ever gonna get there. Well, if you have a mesh like that, what you should do is you should turn off the collision entirely from the object. So even while I haven't assigned any collision over here, the actual mesh still has collision data inside of it. Because, for example, what if you shoot it with a gun? It should still bounce off the bullets, you know. All that data is still in. And that actually adds an overhead as well. You can see here it says k.tree size is 151 kilobytes. This is the collision data of the actual mesh. And that collision data is used, for example, for weapons and things. It's not used for the player. So if I add the teapot to a level, I can just walk straight through. But this is used for gunfire and those kind of things. If you take this away, you can save 151 kilobytes on this mesh. So in here, in lot info 0, elements 0, etc., just step down through lot info until you reach this. There is a flag that says enable collision. If you turn that off, this will instantly drop 151 kilobytes. And I'm going to try to find a content browser to give you another view on that. Here also you can see if you hover over it, it says the size at the bottom of the information pop-out. 594 kilobytes for this one, 1.12 megabytes for the hard-edged one. And that is the sum of 151 plus 997. So if I take away collision on this, the 151 will drop to 0, and here it will only be 998 kilobytes. So this is also what I tend to do, especially again when working with mobile, on, for example, on mechanical, I always turn this off. I try to turn this off on almost everything, and by doing that on pretty much everything, I saved at least 10-20 megabytes, I think, on the whole game. And since the whole game is only 150 megabytes big, that did add up quite a lot.